It was a night poised for glamour and celebration, but what unfolded shocked the world and transformed into one of the most unexpected cultural moments in live television history. The stage was set at the National Arts and Media Gala, where industry legends and rising stars gathered under a cathedral of flashing lights and anticipatory whispers. Among them stood Baron Trump, the teenage son of the former president, who had recently begun to wade into the public eye, his presence increasingly marked by calculated remarks and a boldness some admired and others questioned. The cameras were rolling. The audience, both at home and in the packed theatre, waited for the segment to begin, the legacy fireside conversation. A moment designed to bridge generations, pairing a younger public figure with a seasoned icon. That night, Baron Trump was seated across from none other than Denzel Washington, a name synonymous with gravitas, cinematic mastery, and unwavering dignity. It was meant to be an exploration of values, craft, and purpose. But from the moment Baron leaned forward, microphone clipped to his lapel, and eyes coolly scanning the teleprompter, it became clear that his intentions strayed far from the program's script. "Mr. Washington," he began with a smirk barely concealed beneath a mask of polite formality, "do you think your career would have reached the same heights if you didn't play the same morally conflicted characters over and over again?" A murmur fluttered through the crowd. Denzel blinked once, slowly, but said nothing yet. Baron went on, voice dripping with the entitlement of someone accustomed to unchallenged authority. "I mean, it's almost like you found a formula that worked for people's emotions and just kept pressing replay. Is that acting or just a clever repetition?" The words echoed in the auditorium like the screech of a violin bow dragging across steel. For a moment, all the energy in the room froze, suspended in the dead air between the young man's bravado and the veteran's silence. Then Denzel Washington leaned back ever so slightly, his fingers clasped calmly, and without raising his voice, he began to speak. "You know," he said, his voice velvet, but unmistakably firm, "it's funny how easy it is to comment on a journey you've never walked." The room shifted. Baron's confident posture began to falter, his smile twitching into an uncertain half-grin as Denzel continued, "You see, when I stepped onto a stage for the first time, I wasn't thinking about applause. I was thinking about truth, about how to bring real stories to life, about how to give a voice to people whose lives weren't glamorous or polished, but human and raw and necessary." He paused, the silence speaking volumes, and then went on. "And if I played men who wrestled with their flaws, who faced impossible choices, who reflected the grit of reality, it's because those stories matter. Because perfection is boring, and nobody learns anything from it. So if you see a pattern, perhaps it's not in the roles, but in the reflection of the human condition." Baron tried to interrupt, his hand twitching toward the microphone, but Denzel gently raised a finger. "Let me finish." The words weren't forceful, but they carried weight. Acting isn't about tricking people into clapping, it's about reaching them. And maybe that's why you're confused, because you've grown up in a world where image is currency and sincerity is expendable. But in my world, integrity is everything. The room erupted into spontaneous applause. Not the raucous kind meant to embarrass, but the measured, heartfelt appreciation of people witnessing something real. Baron Trump sat in stunned silence, eyes blinking, his scripted bravado reduced to fragments. For once, the cameras caught a moment of unfiltered honesty, not from the teen provocateur, but from the seasoned actor who had just turned what could have been a petty confrontation into a masterclass in grace and intellectual
power.
And Denzel wasn't finished. "You don't have to like my work," he said, "but you do well to respect what it takes to do it with honor." Then he looked straight into the camera, not at Baron, but at the millions watching. "Because this business, this art, it's not about the moment you're on screen. It's about the legacy you leave when the screen goes dark." The host tried to cut to commercial, but the audience stood in a slow-building ovation, applause growing louder with each second. Baron Trump didn't say another word, and when the show returned, he was gone from the stage, a quiet absence noted by all. Denzel remained gracious as ever, fielding thoughtful questions from the audience with humility and insight, never once mentioning the earlier exchange again. But the world had already seen it, shared it, dissected it. In the days that followed, clips of the interaction flooded every platform, spawning debates, think pieces and praise from celebrities and commentators alike. Some criticized Baron for his arrogance, others for his lack of preparation, but most were simply struck by how Denzel had handled the moment, not with anger or insult, but with the power of earned wisdom. It wasn't just a clapback or a gotcha moment. It was a reminder that class, experience, and truth can dismantle ego more thoroughly than any insult ever could. And somewhere, deep in the echo chamber of social media, even Baron's own followers had to admit he had tried to throw shade at a titan and ended up standing in his shadow. What was meant as a jab had become a lesson. And though the incident faded from the trending pages within weeks, the video remains, still circulating, still teaching, a quiet monument to what happens when ego collides with real greatness and learns in silence its place.